Welcome back to the Batty Girls Book Club podcast channel. I'm Danielle.
And I'm Stephanie.
And we are two chatty baddies who love to talk about books. If you are new to our channel, we have been having an absolute blast connecting with different authors in the book community and sharing our love of books, different genres, writing tips, and lots of fun book info with all of you.
For today's episode, we're going a little bit outside of our comfort zone. We're diving into the world of sci-fi.
Ooh.
This is a totally new experience for us both, so we wanted to learn a little bit more about the genre as a whole and then bring our listeners like you some info on this genre as well.
Okay, so today we have an exciting author spotlight near the end of the episode, so stick around so you don't miss out on the amazing Amber Ray Toro, who just released her first sci-fi novel, Umbra. We read it, we're excited, and we want to talk about it and learn more about sci-fi from the author herself.
Before we get into that, let's catch up. What are we currently reading?
That's a loaded question this week for me. I have had a rough week, and I don't know why. This week, maybe even a little bit into last week, I've hit a reading slump, and I see that other people have as well. So I'm just attributing it to Mercury being in retrograde. It was absolutely nothing to do with the books that I was reading. All of them on their own, excellent books, was into them. Had no trouble getting into them. It was just myself, like being a mood reader and then not knowing what mood I was in. So I would like read a little bit of this one. Okay, let me try this one. Okay, read a little bit of that. I had like 6 books going at once. It was actually a problem. Luckily, I have finished most of them. And right now I am listening to Red Rising, which is a very popular sci-fi novel that I know our author that's coming on today, Amber, had also said is similar to some styles that are inside of her novel, Umbra. So I was like, ooh, let me give this a listen. And it's definitely really good and engaging. And there's a lot of action in it. So I'm listening to that right now. And then I just started Darling Girls, which was from Book of the Month Club. My friend had a referral code. I got it for $5. It's hardcover, and I have trouble with hardcover books. We've definitely talked about, like, are we Kindle girls? Are we paperback girls? Yada, yada. But I've never talked about the difference between paperback and hardcover. And I want to talk about it for a minute because hardcover looks good. She's looking good. Dust jackets, don't even get me started. I hate them. I don't want them. I want the book information printed on the actual book itself. Don't give me a dust jacket. I'm throwing it off. And I have a hard time reading.
Hot take.
Hot take. Danny's coming in hot. She hates a hardcover. I'm so sorry I do.
But you know what? This works in your favor because 1, you save money on a
True.
paperback. 2, it's cheaper for you on the Kindle anyway if you have to purchase it. I'm actually surprised because I feel like if you surveyed 100 people, I feel like most people favor hardcover.
That's so funny. I would say
Wow.
85 to 90% of the books on my bookshelf are paperback. She is a break the spine, bend the pages. I like to comfort read.
Yeah.
I want it to fit in my hand nicely. The hardcover, it's like rigid.
Wow.
It's sitting on my lap. I just don't like it, okay? But Book of the Month books are hardcover for the most. I think all of them are hardcover except for if you like choose the audio version. Correct me if I'm wrong because I'm new to it. Like I said, beautiful. They hold up well, I guess, but they're just not for me. But I am reading Darling Girls by Sally Hepworth, which is like a thriller suspense novel. It's about 3 sisters and a mystery involving a body that was found and trying to figure out who done it, who lied to the police, who told them to lie to the police. They have different personalities. They all live different lifestyles. So it's really interesting. I want to say it's under 300 pages. And I think I'll be able to binge it this weekend. And then my Kindle read. I have the tandem read going, except I am a tandem read dropout.
Except you don't.
I did the math. I was about 40% into both, doing the back and forth tandem read. Again, love the concept. And then I realized that Empire of Storms literally had 4 POVs going at one time, like 4 different storylines going at one time. And Tower of Dawn had like 2 going at once for the most part.
Okay.
That's 6 storylines that I'm supposed to keep track of for 700 pages. It's not happening. And so I was feeling really overwhelmed and just like not getting invested into any of the stories because I was reading so many different ones. And so I DNF'd the tandem read, but I did not DNF the series. I'm still reading Empire of Storms, and I'm hoping to finish that soon. And then I'll finish up Tower of Dawn. I am happy that I started the tandem read because I'm already 40% into Tower of Dawn, and I think I'll still remember what's going on because I'm not going to wait months and months, hopefully, to finish it. But now I don't have to sit through the whole book of Tower of Dawns from that particular POV that most people are not that interested in. Yeah, so we are going strong with the series. We're not going strong with the tandem read. I'm so sorry. It just didn't happen for me. And I had to listen to my heart. And my heart was saying, pick one, sis, because you got too many books going. So that is what I'm currently reading. Steph, tell our listeners what you're reading currently.
What aren't I currently reading?
That's a real question.
Okay, I think the last episode we put out, I think I was finishing Assassin's Blade, or I was starting Airfire. I am scheduled / I have to finish Airfire tonight in the Throne of Glass series because my Libby hold comes out. And I don't feel like airplane moding because I have a couple of different books that I'm reading on my Kindle. So first and foremost is Airfire. That's my priority. I have, I think, 160 pages to go. Okay. Love. I'm still reading the book Counterfeit by Kirsten Shen, which I was reading in our last episode. I actually was thinking this through yesterday when I was driving. I had about a 30-minute drive in the car, and I was like, it makes so much sense that you would be able to get through audiobooks so much faster because of your drive. It actually takes me so much longer to get through them because I don't have a lot of places to drive or uninterrupted periods of time. So it's taking me a while, but it's a really short book, which I think is funny that it's taking me so long to get through it. I just started the book Threads of Fate by C.A. Blooming, and she will be on our podcast episode, the next episode that we put out in the end of May. I am also reading an art copy, These Shallow Waters by Madison Mouser, I think is how you pronounce her last name. Just started it, but it's an advanced reader copy. So far, absolutely loving it. So that's 4 books in the works for me right now, which is not common for me. I feel a little bit all over the place, but we're getting through it. I have a nice down weekend. I
also need to make a note that part of the reason I think I was having a reading funk for all my fellow Swifties out there is because the Tortured Poets Department album came out, and there are 30 songs, and that has consumed every free moment of my life listening to them. Like, I watch the lyric videos. I listen to the whole album all through. I listen to the next anthology. I just can't stop listening to it. So even with my audiobooks, when like normally I would listen to an audiobook in the shower, I'm putting on Taylor Swift, and I'm so sorry, but I'm not sorry because I'm a Swiftie through and through, and I'm loving it. And this is a big week for Swifties. And so if you're like me and feel like you're not doing your books justice this week, just be kind to yourself. You know, what would Taylor do? She would just say, it's okay. We're down bad this week, but we're going to pick ourselves back up next week. It'll be great.
Take off by the bootstrap. That will be me when Love Island UK comes out in the summer.
Agree.
I will fall.
We
off
love
the face
Love
of the
Island
earth.
UK.
Yeah, so it's good.
I'm in my
it's
teenage young love breakup feels this week, as many of us are. Like very much in a happy relationship. But I'm like, oh my gosh, I just really feel her pain, you know?
Yeah.
So yes, that's where I'm at. But that is not today's episode. Today's episode is Sci-Fi Girlies. Yeah. I really did enjoy my journey into sci-fi the past like week or two. I want to carry on and see if this is something that like I will be adding into my rotation of different genres. It was very different than I expected. It had a lot of aspects that I like about fantasy in the sense of like other worlds, and like certain plot themes. I was like, oh, like the action. I enjoy that. You're a romancy lover. So you might not enjoy it as much, but that's okay. But I wanted to start out with like telling our listeners who also might not be big into sci-fi, know much about it, like what even is sci-fi? I thought originally that it was a subgenre of fantasy. And I can totally be wrong, but through the research I have done, it seems to be that they are actually both subgenres of a bigger, broader, like umbrella category called speculative fiction. Never heard of that in my life, so I have learned a lot. what speculative fiction is it's any genre that deliberately departs from reality. So basically it speculates what different worlds might be like. So that makes sense. Different subgenres that fall under speculative fiction are fantasy, science fiction, superhero fiction, paranormal, which we love, horror, utopia, and dystopia, which I actually really love dystopian societies and reading things like that. So like Handmaid's Tale, very much enjoyed that. And then science fiction specifically is a genre that depicts like real or imaginative science where the story very much has to reflect around like technology, science, and it doesn't have to be science or technology that exists today, but it has to be like loosely based on like things that could be real in the future. So you think all of these like futuristic, gadgets and stuff like that, like these are based off of science principles that exist today, but we're just like taking it to the next level. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And that I also liked in one of the definitions I read that it said science fiction doesn't have to be like ultra futuristic. It can be depictive of like technology or a world that's like just slightly different than our own. I was like, ooh, I really enjoyed that definition. And I think I would like reading books that are similar to that.
One thing that's actually really funny is that when you think about books that we're like, wow, we really enjoy, it's always these like, has to be not super close, like a little bit like a delusional reality.
Yeah.
There has to be a love interest who's absolutely horrible. Sure. And I'm like, what does that mean for us?
Yeah. What's wrong with us?
Yeah. I just think that's really funny that like the books we enjoy like have nothing to do with anything we experience on planet Earth.
Please pull me out of my reality completely. Yeah. That's what I love about speculative fiction. Steph, can you tell us a little bit about like what are some common tropes that we can find in sci-fi? Because some are similar to other genres, but I think it has a lot of its own unique tropes as well.
Yeah. So for people who have dipped the toe or they're fully submerged into the fantasy or romantasy world, I think you might have probably come across a book that might have had like time travel in there, one book or another. So that's another trope that you might see in some sci-fi, more of like a space travel or a time travel trope. Another one that's also in Amber's book, Umbra, is like a sentient spaceship. So that would be like, like if a spaceship has feelings or consciousness. And again, if you're not quite in sci-fi yet, think the House of Wind in A Court of Silver Flames, how it kind of has that consciousness, same type of a concept, just with a spaceship instead of a house.
I love it.
Another trope would be post-apocalyptic. And
also seems like more realistic to me. Like when I read that, it's like life after Earth. Sometimes I get really existential when I'm like reading something like that or thinking about a book like that, or even movies. Like it's giving WALL-E.
It's giving WALL-E, and that stresses me out a little bit because when I think about that actually being our universe, for me, it actually causes like unrest,
some anxiety.
That's a really good distinction to make. I feel like in a lot of the fantasy books that I have read, it has been more of like a medieval era or like a past tense, like a past older times, where I feel like a lot of the sci-fi books are futuristic. Not that they have to be, but I think that's actually a really good distinction. Yeah,
and maybe something to be said of like maybe anxious girlies don't resonate as much with sci-fi because we're scared that it could happen.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
One of the biggest tropes that I've seen when I was looking for book recommendations was interspecies romance. I saw a lot of alien romance. That's, I think, one of the biggest.
Are into it.
Yes. And I think that it's like the alien romance is kind of like our fae romance. It's
yeah.
Very much the same thing.
So what are some of the top sci-fi recs that are on our TBR that we will be reading? One of them I actually have on my Kindle now because I got it from Libby. This was a recommendation from our gal, your gal. We love her. It's Reagan from the Peruse Project. She read Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie and really enjoyed it. Ancillary Justice is a space opera that's set like way thousands of years in the future, and It also encompasses spaceships that are controlled by AIs who control human bodies or the ancillaries to use as soldiers. That sounded really interesting to me. And if Reagan likes it, I'm going to like it, is what I've decided. So that is one of the biggest ones on my TBR. I hope to read it soon because I do have it on my Libby app. So it's on my Kindle already. And then another one is the Monk and Robot series by Becky Chambers. This also, I have a Libby hold on. Hopefully it comes through soon. Another one that's on our TBR, and I'm obviously listening to now, is Red Rising. It's got a lot of action. It's got a lot of political unrest. I also like the concept of there's like these different houses and divides amongst the people who are categorized into like reds, golds. And I always like when books kind of parallel things that we see in everyday life, like classism, racism, sexism. I'm like, this is like scarily relatable. And so I'm enjoying listening to that one. And then we have Annibot. Annibot, I know, was a big one recently by Sierra Greer because it was also an option on Book of the Month, which I think people love. It's about a female robot and her human owner who explore questions of intimacy, power, and control. That sounds really interesting to me. And the cover is like this pink, like beautiful swirl. I'm so into that one. Steph, I know there was one that you've been seeing a lot of recently that's on your TBR as well.
Yes, I have to add these two because when I was digging into some sci-fi recs, these two kept popping up in addition to the ones that you listed. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir and Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. So, okay, for Project Hail Mary, this is taken straight from Wikipedia. It's set in the near future. It centers on school teacher turned astronaut Ryland Grace, who wakes up from a coma afflicted with amnesia. He gradually remembers that he was sent to the Tau Ceti, or Tau Keti solar system 12 light years from Earth to find a means of reversing a solar dimming effect that could cause the extinction of humanity. It does not sound like there's romance in that.
No, it doesn't.
I have heard a lot of people
really good.
love. And then Dark Matter, that one, says, quote, "Are you happy with your life? Those are the last words Jason Desson hears before the kidnapper knocks him unconscious." This is like murder mystery sci-fi.
Ooh.
Before he awakens to find himself strapped to a gurney surrounded by strangers in hazmat suits. Before a man he's never met smiles down at him and says, "Welcome back, my friend." In this world he's woken up to, Jason's life is not the one he knows. His wife is not his wife, his son was never born, and Jason is not an ordinary college professor, but a celebrated genius who has achieved something remarkable, something impossible. Is it this life or the other that's the dream? And even if the home he remembers is real, how will Jason ever make it back to the family he loves? That sounds really good.
Hooked.
Yeah. So those are two that I've been seeing a lot of. Yes.
That sounds amazing. And I also want to put a disclaimer for everything we have just talked about. If we have butchered anything, if we have said anything wrong, if we are not understanding the world of sci-fi yet, be kind to us, please. Yes. We're learning. We want to understand more. We want more Rex. We want to be sci-fi girlies. Help us out. Be kind. We love you all. Thank you. All right. Well, we are so excited to introduce to you our author spotlight of this episode, which was only fitting since she wrote an incredible space opera science fiction novel called Umbra. Welcome to the show, Amber Toro.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you, Amber. So to
here.
kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, what got you into writing in general, and then also science fiction, because it's very new for us. So I'm very, very curious how we got here.
Sure. So a little bit about me. I do work in a STEM field, so I think it kind of makes a little bit of sense there. I am a data scientist, and that's my full-time job. I'm a mom of 2 little kids, and I have always been into sci-fi. So I was the Star Trek, Star Wars kid, right? Always super nerdy, always into science and math. So when I decided to write a book, of course, I picked my favorite genre. It wasn't until I got into it and learned about selling in the market that I was like, oh, that's not as popular. And I was like, really, it's my favorite.
I love that you stuck with what you love
Yeah.
and what you knew. You're like, I don't care if this isn't like what everybody is reading right now, because the fan base, I feel like, for science fiction is strong though. Like if you are a sci-fi girl or boy, like you are through and through. Like you said, you've loved it since you were a kid.
Totally. Yeah, I agree. Like it might be a smaller market, but I think those of us that do love it, like you said, we really love it. And so, yeah, I just wrote a book that I love, and it happened to be sci-fi.
I feel like that shows in your writing. And I also love that, like, in a world where it's so easy to be like, what's going to make the most money and get me the most readers? Like, it's so easy to be like, I'm going to pick this genre for this reason and not be true to myself. And you were like, no, I'm true to me. I'm sci-fi girl through and through, and love the STEM background. I am all for that. It's giving me Allie Hazelwood vibes. Have you heard of Allie Hazelwood? Not sci-fi, but for our other romance readers, she is a romance writer. She just wrote a paranormal like fantasy called Bride, and she also works in the STEM field and like has little bits of that throughout her writing. So I absolutely love that that's represented.
Oh, that's cool. I have that book. I'll have to read it.
You have Bride? Okay,
I'm pretty sure
loved it. I ate it up. Yeah, I hope you enjoy it. It's wild and weird, and it was like a little bit like, whoa, even for me, with some like werewolf paranormal relationship, but I enjoyed it.
Amber, what I'm really curious about, so I work in human resources and we see data scientist roles come in. And I view a data scientist as like a tech related role. But I'm curious, is there other aspects of it than what I would know working in a tech field is question number one. And then number two, how the heck do you know so much about outer space? Because it really is, it was so in depth. And like you could tell just from reading it that you had this really extensive knowledge.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, data science is a tech role. I spend a lot of my time coding. I also run a team, so I spend like half my time running my team. But what's different is the science piece. So unlike software developers where there's a very set framework and approach to how they do their work, we do experimentation. And that's what's fun. I really like it because it's like solving puzzles. So you get all of this data from the client. And then one of the key things that you have to do is enrich the data. So through feature engineering. So you do calculations and combinations that don't exist natively to better understand what's happening. And that's like one of the key things to actually making good models. And then when you make models, you do like repetitive cycles. So you test and then you're like, this did a good job or this did a bad job. And so where can I go back and adjust the data or adjust the model parameters? And so it's more scientific than some of the other tech roles. I think you get to be more creative, which is really fun.
I love that. I was going to say the science is really what impressed me too within the world that you created. It's like, this is so science-based, and I love science. Like, I was the girl with like the microscope set when I was younger. Like, I absolutely love that. I'm more in the biology side of it in healthcare, but absolutely love the science aspect of the book. And you can tell like your wealth of knowledge is just exponential in this field.
Yes, I love the biology side too. And actually one of my beta readers was a biologist, and all of her notes about like, it could have been this algae, or maybe this is like what would happen. She's like, I love the ship so much. Like, she loved it because a lot of sci-fi is very more on the quantum side, which there is some in Umbra, but she's like, yeah, I loved how you brought all of the biology. And I do think that you're going to see that, right? Of this combination of using biology and tech, which I thought was fun to think about.
I was obsessed with that. In my notepad, I had like the just brain dumping like random notes as I was reading. And I was like, flowers. I was like, oh, I love that there was these like natural elements of like the biological world in there. It made me very excited and just like really engaged me.
Yeah, I thought that was really fun too. And then on the space side, so I actually had to do research for that because, I'm a data scientist, but I'm not an astrophysicist. I do not have like any of that background, right? So I read 2 astrophysics books. I read a book on quantum mechanics.
Casual, just casual,
but like very high level
reading.
ones.
Okay, good.
They were like intro because I wanted it to feel real. Because if it doesn't feel real, it pulls you out of the story. So while there might be some things in there that to an expert are not viable, at least on this, on that level of I could research and I could think it through. I wanted everything to feel possible in a far future.
It definitely felt possible. I feel like there was nothing that I read that I was like, what is this? Or this is like too far fetched. I feel like the system that you built was solid, and I'm sure that all the research you did only contributed like more to that. And I don't know if that's something that like every single author would do. Like that, I feel like just makes it next level, and why it was such a good read, because I was never pulled out of like this wouldn't really, or like this isn't possible, this doesn't make sense. Like I was invested.
Yeah, because I personally, as a reader, don't like that, right? I'll read and I'll be like,
Yeah.
and then you're like, it's
You're like,
okay, you know, suspend your disbelief. But I definitely didn't want to feel that way
Yes.
in my world.
Oh, I love that so much. You have put so much time and effort into this book. Like, I can't even imagine how it feels to have it out there for you right now.
Yeah, super exciting.
You were saying before how like maybe the sci-fi isn't the biggest subgenre of all, but are there certain types of readers who you feel would enjoy your book?
So, I mean, obviously, sci-fi readers, I think it's a good fit for people that have read it that are from the sci-fi background. Say it captures a lot of the classic sci-fi and what they loved about sci-fi growing up, like me, like a Trekkie kid or a Star Wars kid.
Yes.
So it does capture a lot of that. But if you actually, I thought this was really funny. If you actually go to Goodreads and look at readers also enjoyed, and you scroll through, they're all romantasy.
See, yeah. It fits. It fits.
Yeah. So, and I've gotten that more lately in the comments from readers, that it reads like a sci-fi romantasy. So it does. Yeah, I thought it was really fun. And okay, I guess tangent for that. I actually read romance for the first time last year. I had never read romance before. And I found the romantasy genre and I really enjoyed it. And
yes.
Because I've always
welcome.
Yeah. I've always loved fantasy. I've always loved sci-fi, and I've always loved it when they had a romantic subplot. But the ones I've read before, it's like usually very subtle. Subplot. And then, mine is a subplot as well, but it's a subplot the way it is in a romantasy, where, you still get time with that relationship and caring about what happens, even though it doesn't fit the genre convention of a romance.
Yeah. I really enjoy that. I feel like yours had very much like a good balance of the romance that like kept you like, ooh, I'm excited to see like where this goes, like this tension here. And then obviously the whole sci-fi world was its own, plot in and of itself. So I feel like you did a great job balancing the two. And I can't say that coming from like, oh, I know so much sci-fi, but as far as knowing romantasies, we know that. We know the balance there.
Well, and on the sci-fi side, I think I've read maybe one other one that's somewhat similar. It's Megan O'Keefe's Devoured World series, and that one has a pretty solid romantic subplot as well. But I mean, personally, even in this genre, I don't think there's a ton. I'm sure there are great ones out there, but I have struggled to find them, I would say. I think it's maybe a newer trend, because like those are Megan O'Keefe's newer books that have that. I think it's maybe a newer trend in the genre.
One thing about me, I love a romance subplot. Like even if you're building this whole other world, just to follow two characters and like to have that tension built and say like, I am invested in this. I love it. It has my buy-in.
Me too. I struggle if I don't care about the characters, right?
Yes. It has to have a human element to it. Like, and I feel like romance really is such like a human experience. Yeah. And so no matter what world we're in, we're here for the romance. We don't get, we're space, we're fantasy world. We love it. I would love to talk about like what kind of tropes that you have in your book.
Sure. Okay, the tropes. And this was kind of fun because I don't, like you said, I don't write for the tropes. So what I had to do was go and read it and then be like, what is in there? Because I just wrote, I wrote this story. I am a plantster. So I have plot points we have to hit. But then the characters help me figure out how we're getting there. So, whatever developed that way developed naturally in the story. So in the story, let's see. I mean, there's adventure, there's action, there is the slow burn romance, there is enemies to lovers, there is found family. I think those are the top ones that are coming to mind that I have seen people bring up and that I noticed. Actually, I didn't notice the found family myself. That one was one that readers told me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. You bring, all these different people together and they form this, connection. And that was a fun piece.
And even kind of like a rekindled friendship. Like I liked that aspect towards the end too. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just like such a girl's girl, and I love like when girls come through for other girls. So I really enjoyed that aspect as well.
Yeah, the female relationships are super important to me in my books. My novelette that I wrote for my 12-year-old, that is focused actually on a female friendship, and it is a rivals to reluctant allies.
I love
Yeah,
that. That tracks. That tracks.
yeah. So yeah,
Oh,
I
I
like
love
that.
that so much. And then can you also tell our listeners and ourselves what you define a space opera? Because I saw that labeled on your Instagram and I had to look it up myself. I was like, I don't know anything about a space opera.
Yeah, I learned that from Google also. But yeah, the space opera is referring to the setting is in space, and it is this grand scale where you have, these big political and relationships, and just it speaks to a grand scale set in space. So I would say it's
Love
very
that.
similar to epic fantasy, but
Yes, yes.
instead of magic, it's tech. So yeah.
Yeah. I love the like parallels you're making too, because it's helpful for us and I think other people who are intimidated by sci-fi, just like people are intimidated by getting into fantasy. I was for sure. I'm like, oh man, like this is a lot. World building, and same with science fiction. You're in this different world that you have to really piece together and visualize in your mind. And speaking of visuals, your fan art, next level. Upset. Every reveal you have done, I'm like, oh my goodness. I am enjoying them so much.
I've been really lucky to work with two really amazing artists for this book in particular. One of them I actually booked in August. So one of the ones I just revealed, yeah. I mean, that's how talented, they both are so talented, but they're so in demand that you have to book out and then look forward to seeing your scenes. But
that's so cool. And your book cover, I need your book on my bookshelf. Like I will be buying the physical copy because it is stunning.
About that, like David is amazing. That's my cover designer. And I gave him like the most random brief. I was like, here's some vibes, like here's some elements. And I really like the stylized Dune covers. Like, go.
Yes.
I
love that.
All I gave him.
He crushed it.
Yeah. The other thing I told him was that I wanted it to have that crossover feeling of sci-fi and fantasy because of kind of that romantasy element. And so that's where the scroll work around the outside came from.
Yes.
And so he's so talented. Like I was just blown away.
Beautiful.
Yeah. That's incredible. For the fan art that you were talking about, is that how you go about when you're talking to a designer? Do you say, okay, here's how I've described them in the book, have at it? Or do you say, well, I was thinking, even though this is how they're described, like here's more of a visual of picture them, make something unique?
Yeah. So what I do is I put together a document, and in that document, I outline a lot of things. So like scars, tattoos, physical appearance, cultural background, relationship with the other characters that are in the scene, so that they can hopefully have the kind of right body posture and the way that they sit in the scene with the other characters. And I do grab, a couple of visuals usually from like Pinterest of this is kind of what they look like in my mind. And then I do really like I give the same briefs to the artists, and then I let them take that. And it's like, what is their vision based on like who I've described? I think it's the most recent piece, one of the most recent pieces, the one which is the alleyway kiss scene. That one I actually put the scene descriptions of how they looked when they were going to the nightclub, and then the actual scene description. And that one was pretty cool because she came back to me. She's like, there's 3 epic moments here. Which one do you want? So that was really fun. Like, so yeah, she read the scene and then you could really tell, I think, in how the art piece turned out.
It's so thoughtful, and it like very much helped me visualize. And I feel like your characters are so diverse. Like I love the representation. I just really enjoyed the different points of views. Like we got so much in this story from different characters and different places and different things going on. Like it just keeps your attention because you're like, okay, well, what's happening with this character? And like, I need to know more.
I'm glad it came through that way. That's definitely the hope. And with multi-point of view, you don't always know if people are going to enjoy all of the POV characters. So it's
definitely,
it's nice when it comes through.
I feel like you did a great job of making them all like important. Like it wasn't like, oh, I don't want to read this.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want to get back to this other. Like they all had interesting enough personalities and plots going on that it was fun to read each of them instead of being like, oh, I just want to go back to this.
Yeah,
you know.
I agree.
Yeah, no, and that was the goal. And it's funny because there were 4 core characters that the story was based around. And if you look at my older marketing, you can see that, you know, originally it was the rogue, the commander, the admiral, and the scientist. So Rohan was the other core character that the story was based on. But I realized, and I never wrote from his point of view, but I considered if I should. And I was like, he's always with one of the other characters. And so that's why he didn't get his own point of view, was because he was always with them. And I was like, is there anything that we need from his point of view? And I decided there was not.
It didn't add value to it to add this extra POV.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rohan.
Like I still
You're
love
so great.
him.
You're our side guy.
But I just
we still love you. You're still our bestie.
Yeah, I just didn't need to be in his head, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Very thoughtful for sure. And can you tell us, we talked a little bit about what our sci-fi TBR is currently, but we would love to know what your recommendations are. I know you already talked about Megan O'Keefe's newer works. What else is on your favorite sci-fi recommendations? And specifically, if you have any recommendations for people getting into the genre.
Yeah. So I think I'll go, I have indie and traditional. And actually, I think some of the indie ones that I've read are better for intro, in my opinion, actually. But you know, the classics like the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown, that's traditional, is one of my favorites. Brandon Sanderson's Skyward series is a favorite. And that one is YA, so it is an easier intro as well, in my opinion. So on the indie side, though, and I do think these are probably all better intro books because they have a little bit more of that accessibility, and some of them have some fantasy elements. So E.A. Hendricks' Suspended in the Stars, that one actually has magic as well as space.
Ooh.
And a very sweet enemies to lovers slow burn romance. So that one is really fun.
Say no more.
And actually, I think these are all YA if I think about it now. Yeah. But they're all really good. Then there is Of Starlight and Bone, and that is Emily Lane. That is the first in a trilogy. That one's perfect for anyone who is a fan of Firefly, the TV show. Okay. It's really good. That one also has a nice romantic subplot.
Love that.
Enemies to lovers, slow burn. I mean, that's just my favorite, I guess.
She knows what we like. She gets us.
Haley Reese Chow has Into the Churn. That also has a very sweet slow burn romance, and they have that one. Book 2 is coming out like next month. That one is perfect. Fun. It is there's a battle royale race that the main character ends up entering on this planet with storms that will kill you. It's so good. It's so fun.
For the F1 girlies out there, I know there's a lot of F1 romance girls, so there you go.
There you go. Yeah. And that one's super fun. Haley Reese Chow is an engineer, and she was a collegiate fencer. So her writing is so cool. Fantastic. Yeah.
The best and worst part of this podcast is that my TBR is never ending now. I'm like, oh my goodness, it never ends. And I have sections for different genres now because I got to keep it together. And so my sci-fi genre section has grown exponentially, and I'm so excited.
Yeah, no, same here. Bookstagram is what ruined my TBR or made it better.
Yes.
For better or for worse, we're here for it. When is your next book out? What is that, like, in the works now? Do you have a date in mind?
So book 2 is 30% drafted.
Ooh. Okay.
I'm really excited to get back to it. Okay. Fun fact, I haven't shared this anywhere. I feel like this is a good place to share it. So book 1 is not spicy, right? There's like a steamy scene, and there's a romance. Yeah. There is an open door scene in book 2.
We're ready.
So that was funny because I didn't know if there was going to be or not. So like I said, I let my characters kind of just drive. And so I was like, the characters will tell me if like there's going to be spice in these books or not. Yeah. And I like this scene came to me and I was like, well, I'm not writing right now. I'm working on book 1, like editing.
Yeah.
And then I could not get it out of my head. And I was like, all right, you guys.
All right.
So.
Quiet down.
Spoken. They want spice.
Quiet down.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and being a science fiction baddie girl with us today. Can you tell us where our readers can find you so they can follow along with your journey of Umbra, the next story, and where can they find Umbra if they want a copy for themselves?
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been really fun. And
good, I'm glad.
Okay, my social handles are the same across all platforms. It's Amber Rae Toro. Rae is spelled R-A-E. And I'm on all the platforms, so wherever you like to hang out. I have a website, ambertoro.com, which I need to update probably. And you can get Umbra anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, KU.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on, for being our first sci-fi author, for introducing us to this genre. I swear to you, I literally did not know that we could cross the two worlds this way. No pun intended, but truly, it's been so fun, and I'm so glad that I got to start this genre with your book, because really it's been so pleasant to read through. So I'm loving it. Thank you for that, and thank you for sharing the art copy with us.
If you like what we have to say and you want to hear more, please leave us a review and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Instagram, and YouTube at Batty Girls Book Club. And don't forget to stay batty.